clear that you've learned a lot about, where the industry is and where it's going. Can you sort of give us a sense of your typical process of consultation? Meaning, what type of research is it that you're conducting when you're interacting with clients? Is it is it market research? Is it consumer journey and user experience type of work, competitor analysis? You referenced due diligence earlier, but where in your process do those types of things fit?
So that's a great question. And I work on both sides, right? I work with the sports properties and I work with the startup technologies. And they each have different questions with different answers. I mean, ultimately, the sports properties I help them identify their pain points, and then the technologies that I know that those deliverables solve for those pain points. But it's really two different sets of questions and diligence. So first, for the sports properties, when I work with a sports property, I actually need to help them understand why they're experiencing these pain points. And so, like, for instance, if a sports property doesn't know who their consumers are, it's likely because they don't have access to cleansed and structured first-party data. So this would mean that they need to deploy a technology that delivers fan engagement. Another scenario would be if a sports property can't sell out their arenas with their existing ticketing platform, it's likely that they're just not reaching a broad enough audience with a compelling price baseline. So this means that they need to engage with a dynamic ticket pricing technology that helps to solve this problem. And another scenario, particularly important right now, is if a sports team's athletes just aren't performing their best, or they're incurring like significant injuries, it's likely that they're not being properly monitored for load, nutrition, or biomechanic feedback. So this means that they need to engage with a performance technology that helps their athletes improve. So once I understand what the pain points for the sports property is and help the sports property understand the why, it makes it easier to advise a startup and connect the startup technology with the team. So the research that I do with the technology is a little bit different, and it's actually far more engaged. So I mentioned before, when I meet a startup, I always ask about the founder's story. I really want to know why they're solving this particular problem. And I have them walk me through a presentation. And, when a startup actually gets in front of an investor, they've got their investor deck. But a presentation is very similar to that. It's just kind of the first iteration. And the presentation always needs to have a couple of like 6 or 7 slides that are absolutely critical. And it helps me understand where they are and where they need to go. So the presentation always needs the founder's story, needs to identify the problem, needs to identify the solution, their solution. They truly need to understand their competitive landscape. They need to show the tech and the product roadmap. They need to identify their business model. Are they a SaaS platform? What are they? They need to be able to generate the revenue projections based on what they think their wonderful tech is going to do. I need to see the team and advisors, and of course the anticipated exits. So if those core elements aren't in that original presentation, honestly, that group is not ready for consideration. You've got the research that is done for the sports properties to help them understand why they're having an issue. You have the research that is done with the technology companies to understand why they are solving the problem and why their solve is better. And then, honestly, in my own personal research, it's really important that I'm informed about technology trends, how they impact the sports ecosystem. And honestly, the only way that I can do this is through consistent, extensive research into the technologies themselves, understanding the problems that need to be addressed, and who is really solving for those problems. So I literally read sports and sports tech trade papers every day. I review TechCrunch every day to see what kind of companies are being funded or who's being acquired. I attend what is now virtual conferences, and I literally speak with my colleagues in sports and in tech and in the investor space to understand truly what's on their plates.